Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Big Picture with Amazing Dyslexics. Happy Dyslexia Awareness Month in the US and Dyslexia Awareness Week in the UK. We're so excited that you're joining us for this special episode where we'll be talking about how to embrace your dyslexia. I'm your host, Gil Gershoni, founder and creative director of Gershoni Creative Agency and Dyslexia Design Thinking. As a branding agency, we work with our clients to help them tell their stories. But today I'm excited to share my story and stories of other dyslexics from around our global community. And as always, I'm joined with my co-hosts and partner in crime, all things dyslexia, Kate and Kathy.
Hello, how are you?
How are you guys?
We are great, we're great. We're enjoying all this lovely positive dyslexia awareness stuff that's going on at the moment.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I know that there's so many different talks and lectures and awareness that's happening over there and over here as well. I'm so excited to have this special episode with you guys where we're going to get to sort of look at some of our amazing guests from this past year and really listen to some of the things that really made different in their lives and how they embraced their own dyslexia. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's true. We've had over 25 guests with us, some appearing more than once on over our 10 salons. It's just been wonderful to hear all their lovely, positive, wise wisdom
and stories. Changing that negative connotation of dyslexia and turning it into a hyperability, which we're on a mission to do.
I know. You know, one of the things that really sort of stood out for me over this season is really the theme of education, you know, because I know so much of us as children, as young adults going through the school system struggle so much to work through our dyslexia and learn to read and write. But then I know that what happens when we kind of get out of the school system, we get to break our shackles and really be able to sort of fly and thrive. One of our guests that was, I think, an episode was at 5, I believe. The episode was about embodying dyslexia in art and architecture and design. Was Julian. He's an architect from Singapore, and I would love to cut to one of the clips where he was talking about that experience. Let's bring that clip up.
It was the older I got, and towards the end of my education, and actually you realize that at the beginning, you're shoehorned into this kind of way of thinking that's not actually how your brain works, right? So 80% of the class are excelling in things, and then that there's a moment when that sort of turns, when you're sort of in your higher sort of education, or later when you enter a career, there's a momentum when actually dyslexia is an advantage, and you're actually creating things much more faster and alternatives and interesting things than your peers. So I think that's something for dyslexic sort of parents and kids out there to really understand, is that you may be struggling right now to fit into a mold that's been around for ages, but actually those shackles will come off when you grow up, and you're free to kind of you become the the center of attention.
I love that analogy of shackles coming off and you're free to fly. For me, my shackles came off when I went to art college, and I found my tribe. I wasn't the odd one out. I felt like I was at home. I thrived. I was at my most creative, and and as Julian said, doing what I love. And as Julian said, you become center of attention, which you sometimes crave as a dyslexic going through that whole educational system. But so Gil, when did your shackles fall off?
Well, so similar to yours, I think that it's also when I went to university, I went to art school as well. And I remember the day that I sort of left my hometown and my school and all that sort of construct and arrived to New York City and met all these brilliant, young, ambitious, ready to conquer the world artists and creators, and realized that, wow, what I thought was like kind of a side thing of being creative was what kind of connected us all. And, it's like birds of feather fly together, right? Like I also felt the same as you, like that being around these people, they saw the true me, and my ability to see things differently was so appreciated. So it was really, really moving. And I never looked back, and just continue to kind of feed that feeling, and looking for people like yourselves and like our dyslexic community around the world to bring us together, because we're almost like lost brothers and sisters, that when we realize that we're so similar and we see the world differently, it just gives us this sort of ability to really embrace our dyslexia in ourselves, you know.
It's a lovely moment, isn't it, when you find your tribe, you find the people you're comfortable with. Lenny said that brilliant thing about that dyslexics almost have a radar for finding other dyslexics. Once you kind of understand dyslexia and you understand the strengths and it's a particular way of thinking, you can spot it, you know, whether you see someone on TV or talk, it's the way they talk and the way they think, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Yeah,
Exactly.
and Aaron said some great things as well. I mean, he was so brilliant in the fact that he noticed that in elementary school you're told to be the same, to fit in, and be like everybody else. But then as soon as you leave and join the workforce, you're told to be different, stand out, be better. So it's just that total thing of leave school and find your passion and do what you love. Yeah.
Yeah, I one of the things that I know was important to all of us, and we've talked to so many different dyslexics from so many different countries, so I know it's really part of the dyslexia, you know, person, is that trying to find that earlier on, you know, and not waiting for those moments where the shackles are coming off, you know. And the way that I've been, you know, looking for it and talking to young children around that is that, what do you like to do? What gives you joy? What gives you that personal sort of fulfillment and makes you feel whole? Even though you may be struggling with one thing, you can find other things in your life that sort of really embrace the way you see the world. And if you do it earlier on, you know, the contrast between challenges and embracing it, I think, really kind of becomes, you know, I hope that it would become sooner, that we can kind of release that stigma that dyslexia is a disability and really start to see it out of the gate as a hyperability, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it always moves me to sort of talk to young children and see, when you tell them that they're in the companies of amazing people, to see their faces light up and realize that actually they have a superpower, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
I know that in our last salon and a few other ones, we had a lot of parents in the chat, and we had a school that came in with a lot of 8th graders that were all dyslexic, and it was so nice to know that they were there listening and seeing how we embrace it and being part of it. You know, what advice would you give those parents to help them and their children embrace the dyslexia? Kate, anything as a parent, any thoughts around that?
Yeah, actually, I've got something. I remember Bill Amberg. I can't remember what salon he was, but he would say, he said to that particular parent who was seeking knowledge for her son, who was at primary school, she said, how do I get him to embrace his dyslexia? And it was like, he said, just open up every cupboard in the house, every drawer, just encourage him and teach him to play and do everything, and then one of those drawers will open up and that drawer will be for him, and he'll find his passion through that way. You know, just play and explore.
Yeah, try everything. And I think the other way to really embrace your dyslexia is to really understand what it is for you, because dyslexia is very different. My son's dyslexia is very different from my daughter's dyslexia. So I think that the key is to understand what your strengths and challenges are, and then you can find the strategies to sort of plug the gaps, and then accept it and have fun with it, and just
dance with it.
Dance with it, yeah. As you brilliantly say, dance with your dyslexia.
Yeah, you know, like, it's finding that curiosity, playing, feeding it, changes this conversation. You know, if the conversation all the time is like, you can't read, you can't study in a traditional way, then that sort of puts so much energy toward that, what you can't do. But as you were saying so beautifully, like, you know, open the drawers, play, dance, make it out of art, math, whatever it is that the person's attracts or go towards, you know, that's the beginning of that relationship. And when you find those things that just give you that sort of that sort of feelings, then exactly dancing with it just allows you to sort of develop a relationship with your dyslexia, you know, shining a light on it, right? I remember, Obi for season 6. Obi was so amazing. And he, you know, that season 6, episode 6 was how dyslexia teaches us empathy, right? And Obi is a social worker, and let's cut to his clip and listen to him for a minute. He was just so beautifully the way he described that.
It gives you the belief that you can fly, and when you fly like a bird, you have that kind of bird eye view to empathize on people that don't have what you've got, and then it gives you an understanding of human feelings.
Wow.
Beautiful. So yeah, I love that. I think that's one of my favorite clips from all the 10 salons that we've done. I mean, they've all been special, but I think that some comments resonate, and that one was quite special for me. It's when he said, I'm hungry to shine that light on darkness. And that's why he said he loved what we were doing in the salons, because we were shining a light in a dark place for all the dyslexics out there that just need to learn,
see the good stuff.
Yeah, see the good stuff, and know and be proud of being dyslexic. I mean, we're on a long journey to change that connotation, but you know, it was when he embraced his dyslexia, and he went through all those struggles. He, as a social worker, he can see and identify and recognize those struggles in other people, and he can help them more. And then once he's helped them, it's almost like he's given the baton to them, and they can go forth and help somebody else and share that light. It was beautiful. I loved it.
Yeah.
You know,
I think.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, lots of the amazing dyslexics share that sort of strength of empathy. You know, they really they've struggled through something, so they know what that feels like, and that's quite powerful.
Mm-hmm. That's part of the gift too. You know, that momentary struggle, right? When you are going from the disability mindset and that moment where you pivot or you see that it's actually a hyperability, you know. Was there a moment for you guys when you kind of felt, you know, that challenge, or for your children, that challenge of disability kind of you can see in their faces and mind where it changes to a hyperability? Was there a moment that sort of triggered it for you guys?
I think witnessing my child, both of them, I have a daughter and a son, and they're both dyslexic, severely dyslexic, but totally different in what their challenges are. But it wasn't until Finn left school and started art college, and that was when it all changed for her. Yeah. And it's even though during her education we tried to keep all going and all positive, but it wasn't until she left school and found her passion. Yeah, her passion.
And I think it's as well when you know, when you're first told your child is dyslexic, it's quite a scary word. You don't quite know what it means, and so you kind of get lots of books and you read lots of things. And actually, this book was The Dyslexic Advantage was quite important for me to suddenly realize that actually all of the negative side, you know, and it you know, these big tomes of these big heavy books that kind of just focus on what you can't do. This was suddenly focusing on what you can do, and it was really exciting. And then I think just the more we talked to people, the more amazing dyslexics we met and connected with and talked to, it just became more and more exciting that actually this isn't such a bad thing. And also, you know, you read about all the struggles, and often it's just like, oh, I do that, or I do, you know, they're things that they're not, they're overcomeable. They're not, it's not the end of the world that you don't know your times tables. You know, we can use the iPhone now, can't we? You know, there are things, technology has leveled the playing field on so many things.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you feel your eureka moment was that you found it to be a hyper ability, which you very brilliantly coined the phrase?
Well, thank you. I think it's really about, sort of finding a place in you, and I think you're kind of hitting on it. And when we talk about the shackles, like that, you kind of actually embrace the fact that you're dyslexic, and you realize that dyslexia is not, it didn't happen to me. I was born with it. It's not just, I do everything through I'm a whole person, right? So it's sort of, dyslexia is I look at the world through the lens of dyslexia, no matter what I do. If I do my branding, if I do my community work, if I do the work with you guys, it's all through the same lens. So kind of embracing that really kind of allows it to all of a sudden be less charged. And then you kind of, as we said before, you kind of feed it, and you kind of be able to, as Obi said, you're able to then realize that you can actually kind of work with it and use it, what used to be a challenge, as your sort of superpower. You can kind of fly, right? You can see through things and above things and below things all at the same time. And that's where it goes from something that was, I was unable to do it, or a disability, to something that becomes a superpower and a hyper ability. And for me, it's hopefully I would never stop experiencing that, because that eureka moment happened every time I embrace it and I accept myself, and that really goes to everyone. It doesn't have to be just dyslexic. It's to all of us. We all have strength and we all have differences. And, some of the things that we are good at are in contrast to the things maybe we're not so good at. And embracing the whole person just means that we are like everyone else. We all have our superpowers, and
Society needs us all.
Say it again?
Society needs us all.
Absolutely, because I know that I couldn't do all the things we do in my world if it wasn't for my amazing partner and my amazing team and amazing collaborators, because we all bring different perspectives, and some of us think non-linearly, but we really need the linear thinkers, and some of us think more linearly, and we need the more non-linear thinkers. And I think together we can invent worlds. I
know. Do you remember as well that lovely Lloyd, the actor, talking about how a lot of the hardship kind of gave him his strength, and he talked about dyslexia being like the sword that he put in the fire, which was painful to shape, but it became his strength, and that he could really use that in his acting, all of those emotions and feelings that he went through.
He really understood them. And he's amazing. He's really amazing the way he does it, and how he can transform his whole person in order to kind of express an emotion and being in the scene, in the story. Dyslexic have a way of thinking differently, and that is that's a huge value these days. So I remember a clip from Charlotte talking about that from our first episode. Hard to believe, first episode was a year ago, almost to the date. It was from disability to hyperability. And let's bring that episode up and listen to Charlotte for a minute.
Is to me a Rubik's Cube, where you're constantly trying to solve something and constantly shifting to try and find this combination. I feel like people are trying to strive to find this uniform pattern, but within trying to solve this Rubik's Cube, there's a beauty with the colors and the shapes. And actually, what's great is you might find something brilliant before getting to the end result. And that, to me, I think is what dyslexia is.
The Rubik's Cube. That's a beautiful way of looking at it, isn't it?
And what a way with words as well, which is something that lots of dyslexics shares. I mean, they really know how to use language.
Yeah. Well, I know for myself, I mean, English is not my first language, but I know that I've had to not only learn the language, but learn how to communicate and how to listen, because communicating and writing was not my strength. And then you also learn that communicating through language you can get very specific, because you can think in nonlinear ways. So if you want to try and express something, as she did so well, you really try to sort of find the right combination of metaphors and words and in order to sort of really kind of express exactly where you are and how you're thinking, and letting that dyslexia brain kind of flow, right? Just jumping around and bringing those pieces together. She does it with her partner Elizabeth so beautifully as they choreograph and dance and do their podcast, and so inspiring the stuff they do. I remember seeing one of their performances, and they just move their body in just such a beautiful way. You guys were telling me this story when you first met her.
Yeah.
You guys went to see the performance.
Yeah, we went to see them. It wasn't the first time, it's the second time. They were, Charlotte choreographed a whole team of ballet dancers. They were the Norwegian ballet at the National Ballet. But they had she orchestrated the music, which was really cool beats, and the lighting, and obviously the dance and the movement.
And the clothes, they all had knee-high socks on.
It just told a story. All her senses were on fire. It was just and I think that's what dyslexics are good at. We have multi-sensory senses that fire up when they need to fire up. We're not linear thinkers, but we're almost we're chaotic but amazing ideas, and we don't think one thing. We think the music, the colors, the lighting, the everything.
It was just so different.
And it reminds me, I think we had Holly Tucker on, and she was describing when they get a new project on, they go to this room, and they had a lot of non-dyslexics in the room, and she was trying to communicate an idea, but she was ripping up magazines and putting them on the wall and post-it notes, and she created this whole environment to communicate her idea. And initially, I think these guys thought that she was crazy, but actually, even non-dyslexics thought this is a great way of communication. And I think we were talking about your studio, Gil, you walk around your studio and there are areas where you can just write or draw, or if you've got an idea, you just stick it on the wall, and then it morphs into an organic ideas, which, and that's almost like a different way of communicating or thinking or seeing things. It doesn't need to be on a screen or in a sketchbook. You can use the four walls of a room, which is, I think probably works a lot better.
Yeah, because Gil, you're the only dyslexic in your team, aren't you?
I believe so. I mean, one of the things that we try to do with our team is to make sure that we're all really different from each other. And we're all multidisciplinaries in different ways, so we all bring a lot of different perspective and curiosity to it. I think that's part of the benefits of thinking differently, is that, it's much more, for me, it's more fun to play with different minds, and as you were saying, is to look at these mediums, the computer, the book, the paintbrush, and let them explode. Often we design things on the computer, and the first thing I would say to the team is print it out, put it on the walls, because you see it differently, or enlarge it, super large, so you can see a small graphic design or a small campaign all of a sudden changes your perspective. And if you can then see on the walls, it's it brings it to life in a very different way, because then our writers comes and write next to it, and our strategists erase it and put a tape on it, and somebody else prints a picture for inspiration and tape it next to it, and before you know, you can kind of see how we all. It's almost like a mind meld, right? It's so inspiring. But that's part of feeding your dyslexia, and it's part of how you embody thinking differently, by just keep pushing against the norms and the boundaries, So, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say as well, I love what you did during lockdown. I mean, we talked a bit about how this is such a special moment in time. I mean, obviously, the pandemic has been terribly hard for so many people and in lots of different ways. But we actually wouldn't probably be doing this had it not been for the pandemic. I mean, we're all locked in our own homes, and we've become such good friends with you, and we've communicated with 25 other people that we probably wouldn't have communicated with, and sat down and had, the idea was that we were be sitting together like we were in a pub or a restaurant talking about the good side of dyslexia. So I was just going to say that sort of thing is I think sort of that lovely dyslexic thinking, and the way that you got your team at work you used to do, is it little projects, and I remember Zelia had to do a painting with whatever was on her desk, and it was with her coffee grains or something.
Yeah, that was one of them. That's right. We came up with this idea of creative interventions, and we do them twice a week. We've done it now for a year and a half, since the beginning of the pandemic. And it really forced us, because we're all sitting in our homes and, working remotely, it really forced us to kind of, the things we were used to do in the studio is to do it at home on our own. So it started to say, like, everybody stop what you're doing right now and go take a walk for 10 minutes and take a picture of a random thing and bring it back and tell us a story about it. What was it? Why you shot it? Where were you? Where did you go? And we came up with hundreds and hundreds of these kind of playful exercises. And what it does, it allows the brain to sort of, think differently, but also come out of its sort of frame a bit. And when you relax and when you play and when you take a walk and you look at your feet, you become very present, and that then you can come back and do whatever you do. For us, it's branding, but you come back to the same assignment fresh again. And I know dyslexics do it naturally, and I know that the whole team love those kind of playful exercises. And then to your story with one of our producers, she took her coffee and drew on a piece of paper this beautiful, I believe it was a boat or something.
Yeah.
And we couldn't believe it. I mean, she was just like so massively gifted, but it was like, it really turned out so inspiring. And then, our writers do the same. And, so we always look forward to that, because it's a very playful way of just sort of being together, but afar, and thinking differently. So
yeah. Amazing.
I know. We thought of so many different ideas. The one we did last, I think it was yesterday actually, is we had everybody go out and take a 10-minute walk and take an upside down photograph. And you think like, okay, like but it was amazing the things that came out, because the sidewalk became the point and the sky was the floor, and like whatever some plants, you couldn't tell it was right side up, upside down, and so it was a really beautiful way of just playing and thinking about
And also, it's important to make things fun, isn't it? And I think when you're fun is when you have your better ideas, you're relaxed, you're not stressed, which obviously can be a block for a dyslexic if you're feeling under pressure and stressed. So to kind of do something different and kind of get out of that mindset is great advice.
Yeah. Well, that's what our mind does naturally, right? We leap, right? We don't go linearly to the next thought. So that's part of feeding it, right? If you leap, then find moments when it's the right time to make it leap, right? So then you kind of say, okay, we're doing this now. Let's go and dance for 10 minutes. We used to do it at the studio that we do 1 minute dance party, and it would be random. So everybody's working, and all of a sudden somebody put like awesome music on the whole speakers in the whole shop, and everybody has to dance for 1 minute. And again, in the beginning, everybody was a little awkward, but then after you do it, you just feel so, rejuvenated, and then you can go back to whatever you're doing with just renewed energy. You guys should try it out there.
Yeah, I think we will. We're going to take that on board.
Well, I've got this theory that actually dyslexics know how to have more fun at a party. You can always spot the dyslexic because they're just like completely in their own world dancing.
Well, that's true here. I can't say for all of us. I know that one of the things that also was that with dyslexic is that I'm not expert in dyslexia. I'm just dyslexic. And we've met so many dyslexic, as you were saying earlier with your children, and everybody is different, and it's part of the beauty of it. Some people can do dyslexia things in one way and other people do it differently. And, there's definitely a lot of sort of through line to all of it. But I definitely love to have a good time and to play. And the other thing is dyslexic have contributed so much to the world, and I know a lot of our dyslexia colleagues have created projects and campaigns and awareness around dyslexia. I remember, I believe it was at episode 8, Learning to Dance with Your Dyslexia, where our good colleague Mark, I believe he was from Portugal, came up with I Am Lex campaign. And let's listen to that clip for a minute.
Embrace the real human-focused storytelling, art-driven aspect, and maybe this will make and change the stereotypes to something more positive. Let's focus on how if we didn't have a dyslexic, we wouldn't have the light bulb, we wouldn't have the automobile, the assembly line, we probably wouldn't go to the moon. We wouldn't have so many different inventions, so many different incredible things that have been made by Lex.
God, it's so true.
I know, and he's I Am Lex. You guys out there, you should definitely check it out. He's really wanting to change the connotation of the word dyslexia and really looking at what it is versus what it's not, and just shedding light on so many brilliant folks that changed their industries with the power of dyslexia. What's some of the first famous folks you guys remember as being dyslexic? Was there anybody that stands out? You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, Pablo Picasso.
Of course,
at Art College, and Da Vinci, who we used in our first book, because he had that wonderful talent of mirror writing. Everything was mirror wrote, so you couldn't understand it. But if you put a mirror on the edge of the next to the text, you could read it in the mirror. So, and we brilliantly nicked his idea and used it as an example in our first book. Should have had a post-it note in that book.
It's a gorgeous book, and definitely folks out there that you're not familiar with the books, please go out and buy them, check them out. They're so inspiring for all ages. My first person that I realized was dyslexic, and I was kind of blown away, was Albert Einstein. And I was like, how is it possible that I am, can really read well, always felt, just like, stupid and lazy, and even though I was massively trying so hard all the time, and then all of a sudden I realized that this genius of a person that sort of changed the way we look at the world was also dyslexic. That I couldn't even understand how was that possible, and I remember that because I remember that I was like, maybe he's dyslexic and he's brilliant, and I'm dyslexic and I'm stupid, and I remember my mom telling me, it's just like, no, it's just that you have to learn, you think so differently and so creatively that you have to get acquainted with it. You have to grow into it.
Yeah.
And I says, Mom, you say it to me because you're my mom and you love me. And that's what moms do. And, and she's like, fair enough. And she scheduled an IQ test. And she says, I'm going to take you to get an IQ test. And I'm not going to go in with you. I think I was maybe like 8 or 9 or something. And she took me there and she let me go in by myself, and I was a little scared and I didn't know. And I sat there and I took the test, and she says, after you take the test, he's going to sort of score you up, and then you're going to go in by yourself and he's going to give you the score. And I remember, it moves me so much to share this story, but I remember when I came in and he said, you have a hard time reading and a hard time writing, but on every other sort of cognitive sort of measurement, you're off the charts for your age group. And then he brought my mom in, and she's like, I told you. And it really changed. That was one of those moments that really just changed it takes time. But when you do take the time and you do shed the light on the whole person, then you really get to grow up knowing that with time, you'll be able to sort of stretch your wings, and with time, you'll be able to sort of soar and fly and join Picasso and Albert Einstein and the rest of these amazing dyslexic and find your place in the world. And so that's definitely something that finding a way to empower these young individuals to see their own brilliance as soon as possible really changes the paradigm,
It's really important. it's so important to have good role models.
Yeah.
Positive. I mean, that's why we. Sorry, I'm book plugging again. That's why we created this book, because it's full of. There's over 50 amazing dyslexic positive role models.
Yeah.
So
because we wrote it at the time our kids were at secondary school, and so the first book was written when they're at primary school, and that kind of describes what the various sort of weaknesses and strengths are, so you can kind of work out where you are with it. And then the second one was all about, they were, there's that real hard slog. The school system's not created for minds like yours, and you've got to keep going, you've got to keep plugging away. And we just wanted to show them, look, keep going, because there's all of this out there that is for you. It's when their self-esteem was low, that was the worst thing as a parent, and I think, was it when you used to work for Conran?
Yeah, well, I used to work for Sebastian Conran, who's the son of Terence Conran. And so I remember my first day there, I just went home in tears because I couldn't find my niche. It was just like, oh my God, I'm dyslexic, I can't do anything. But actually, as I got to know Sebastian, it took a few months, I found out he was dyslexic, I was dyslexic, I found out what he was good at, he found out what I was good at, and together we formed a team and we created some really beautiful design work. But he said to us, and quoted in the book, that it's a stigma if you're not dyslexic and you work in the design industries.
Yeah.
So,
because we've both worked in the creative industries, forever, and we knew that actually that sort of thinking was we were surrounded by it, but it only became a problem again when we watched our children sort of struggling through an archaic education system that really needs a little updating.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, is really to try to find your inner diamond, right? And I love what Holly was saying, really discovering your hyperability and finding your inner diamond. She was on episode Salon 7, Building Lasting Community Through Dyslexia. Let's listen to her for a second.
And I realized that I had a superpower of connecting with people, reading people, and empowering and inspiring them. That's just my diamond. And I always talk to small businesses. I get asked a lot about, what should they start? How can they start? And I talk to them about what is their diamond. If we all have to have peacock feathers, just one thing, what is your peacock feather moment? What is it that is so unique about you that not one single other human could ever be the same as you about? And we all have it, by the way. There is not one person watching, listening that doesn't have it.
Wow.
She's one passionate lady. God, everyone needs a Holly Tucker in their pocket. I mean, if you were having a bad day, that lady would get you pumped up and ready to take on the world. But she's absolutely right.
Yeah, she's so beautiful and so colorful. The way she speaks about empowering individuals and small businesses, and just is infectious. I can hear her talking about it, and really thinking to myself, how do you find your diamond? Any tips that you heard from our salons that you can share with the audience around finding your diamonds?
Well, we actually had a bit of a laugh about this, because Kathy said, I'll ask you what's your diamond, and I went, oh my God, I don't know.
What's your peacock feather?
But actually, and then we sort of were chatting, and actually I think it's ask somebody else, because it's probably easier for somebody else to tell you what your diamond or peacock feather is.
Yeah.
But I think the first thing is just try everything. If you're at school and you haven't found that thing, because my daughter she knew from age 5 that she wanted to work in fashion, and she's just steadily kind of gone that course and is at fashion school now and doing great. But whereas other of our children, they don't know what to do, and it's a lot harder when you haven't found it. But I think you just got to keep trying things, and if that doesn't light your fire, then try something else and just kind of keep going, because dyslexic or not, the biggest gift you can give yourself is a job that you love, because then you go every day that will make you happy and content and fulfilled, which makes for a happier human being.
Yeah, it's so true.
Did you know your diamond, or was it evident?
Maybe similar to your daughters, it wasn't fashion per se, but it was really I was always interested in perception, as a little boy. And I remember my uncle sort of bought me a little magic kit for one of my birthdays. And he showed me some sleight of hands things. And I was like, wow, it was less for me about trickery, but it was more about how do we see the world and what we get from those experiences, and how do we can shape those experiences consciously in order to create environments and relationships and insights. And I didn't know at the time. If I was to think at the time, what am I going to be, a magician? To me it was like, but I knew I loved it, and I just kept doing it. And then I started designing experiences like that, and moments, and color them, and think about how you see it and where you see it from. And then over time, that sort of developed into public speaking, and developed into branding, and developed into fine art, and developed into, space making and things like that. But I wouldn't have known that that's where I was supposed to go at the beginning. What I knew at the beginning is that I get joy out of this.
Yeah.
And I realized later on in life is that is enough. Like when you try to say, what am I going to do when I grow up? How am I going to make a living? That is so much, you're asking yourself so much too early. Like sometimes it's like saying, I just like to play with cars and make roads, or I just like to sew things for my, for my family or for myself, or whatever it is. That's enough. And from that place, just keep doing that. And that's going to feed that sort of inner diamond and that peacock feather that you would never imagine, where it would go and how it's going to manifest in the world. But when you're in that state, when you're in a state that you feel whole and content and complete, the world then brings more of that to you. You attract that, and then you end up going to fashion school and doing phenomenally well, because you love what you do, because you love yourself, and you get to express that. And that's really, for me, that's really the process of finding your inner truth and not being too worried about how is playing with cars and making roads and making magic trick going to manifest later on. I think that, trust in your emotional guidance system. If it feels good, go toward it.
Yeah.
Stop doing it. I don't like doing it, so don't do it. Do something else. In fact,
Kaz even talked about that, didn't he, on the last salon, when he said that sometimes maybe take another job to give you financial security, so that you can still pursue what you love to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he's done so many different types of businesses and so many different types of communities, and he really sort of so I it's really, really moving. Dyslexia community is so much what we were talking about, right? And finding success, it's surrounding yourself with other people that are like-minded, as you were saying, with university, and finding your sort of folks out there. I remember on episode 7, building lasting communities through dyslexia, as Dom is talking about that. Let's listen to the clip.
As you grow up and you become, your own boss, let's say, you find tools and mechanisms to have people around you that can really support you and know that your vision and what you're trying to do is the goal, and all those other bits that you find hard, they can support you.
I know. He's his furnitures are beautiful. His the way he built his community with all the makers and the spaces is amazing. And really, again, just like creating his own, his own environment and his own world to sort of support his own dyslexia, but bring a lot of people along with him. And you guys are masters at that. You guys brought us all together, and books, and the Inside Out project that just sort of just launched in London. Why did you guys decide to build community around dyslexia? I mean, what kind of was the catalyst for you guys?
Do you want to start, Kate? With there's so many things. First of all, I'd like to say, as a dyslexic, collaboration is absolutely key, and Kate and I we just fire off each other incredibly well. It's just, we are a match made in heaven.
Together is very definitely better.
And I think without Kate, none of this would have happened. And we've created 2 books. We've done these salons with you, Gil. We've done an installation at the Design Museum. And this movement has just grown. It's organically grown. We've met some amazing people.
It's been lovely, just connecting.
Yeah.
I think the book has been the most wonderful excuse to meet all sorts of different people from all sorts of different careers. The commonality is the dyslexia, which they've generously shared their experiences. A nicer, lovelier, more charming bunch of people you could not find. I mean, we always sort of say, if you look at these, if you read these people's stories, why wouldn't you want to be dyslexic if you could be, in this group of people? They're so cool. So cool, yeah.
They're such a cool group of people, and that was maybe a bit of a catalyst of starting the Inside Out project. Though Kate was talking to me about it about a year ago, and I couldn't get my head around getting this community together, and JR had this concept, and then the penny finally dropped, and we went, oh my God, we'll just collect all these amazing dyslexics, be part of the Inside Out project, come up with a name which was Dyslexia Beautiful Minds. We've gathered all these people, we got their black and white portraits done, and we created an installation at the Design Museum, which was big, bold, and beautiful.
Yeah,
and
so much positive feedback.
So much positive, and our community as keeps growing, and
through the social media.
Yeah, it's just it's a beautiful thing,
and everyone wants to share it as well, because again, it's that sort of special moment in time where everyone's looking a bit more to sort of mental health and accepting and working with your challenges and seeing the positive side, changing the perspective, changing negative connotations, and accepting who we are.
And the Inside Out project is coming to San Francisco.
Well, one of the things that's so important about what you're saying is about, together is better, and building community is so important, and coming out of the shadows and finding your diamond, and really showing the world that when you kind of bring everybody together, we all feel much better about ourselves. What did you learn most from those experiences? What was your biggest takeaway?
This could be a big movement. I mean, we've only just started this journey. We thought we're kind of years down the line, but actually, I think we've talked about taking this movement globally and really creating a bit of a stir and a bit of an explosion, because there are so many people out there that want to shout out about dyslexia, and I think we've just skimmed the surface with how many do we have? 134 people. I mean, we could have thousands of people globally that want to be part of this project.
It's so true.
I think that's the takeaway.
As long as the Inside Out project are up for it as well, because the wonderful JR, he's a photographic artist, and he came up with the concept of a people's art project. So you kind of go to them with an idea, and then they help you by printing out the posters and helping you with all the sort of social media side of things. But they were completely wonderful, and obviously supporting you next. And then I think someone from Tasmania near Australia is hopefully going to do it. And so let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to have it come to San Francisco and bring in more people, more dyslexic people from the US to combine them with all of our community around the world. I know we have a clip of you guys in the process of installing it and talking about it. Let's take a look.
Well, this is Kathy
And this is Kate.
and together we are Amazing Dyslexics. We're very passionate about changing the negative connotation of the word dyslexia. So we've written a couple of books, and then our latest project is the Inside Out project.
We have 134 black and white posters of Amazing Dyslexics, and they all wanted to be part of this incredible People's Art project, which is at the Design Museum.
Yeah.
As we've said, we're dyslexic and our children are dyslexic, so we've created this whole Dyslexia Beautiful Minds because we want to make people aware that dyslexia is not a negative, it's an absolute positive. We think differently, we think in 3D, we think in colours.
And it's just to inspire kids at school that you just have to work to your strengths, which there are so many strengths that come with being dyslexic.
So good. I really wish I was
know,
there.
we wish you were there.
You know, it looks so much fun, and I know because of COVID and all that, we couldn't do that. But I'm hoping
We're
that
coming to you. We'll be coming to you.
that's exactly what I was going to say. And I just talked to Lloyd the other day, and he said that he would love to come to the US and do his put his posters. I'm looking forward to having all of our guests from this year part of this installation as well, and some others. If you guys out there would love to be part of what we're doing and join our community, please subscribe to our channels. Make sure that our content rises to the top. Let us know what you guys are doing out there by sending an email to dyslexia@gershoni.com. If you want to be involved in the San Francisco Dyslexia Beautiful Mind, we have a new newsletter that comes in every month, the Dyslexian, that we're featuring other dyslexics around the world and their massive successes and stories. We have a podcast of this episode and others that's available and wherever you get your podcasts. I was so moved, you guys, by our experience this year together. And I can't thank you enough for all that you've done to bring everybody together. We got to play. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And all our audience out there, you know, every salon we have, we just had more people joining us live. We've had great questions from people from YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. I mean, wow, what a great experience. So,
and thank you, Gil, because there's been so much hard work going on behind the scenes with the team Gershoni, who just do a fab job. So thank you for your generous hosting. It's been a blast.
Absolutely a pleasure. I know that the first time that we did it, we were like, let's see how it goes. And then we just got addicted to it. And we fed our dyslexia by bringing more people to it. And, you know, please out there, share this video and others and let us know how you're doing with your dyslexia. And I'm going to put an article out in the next day or two about embracing your dyslexia on Medium. So have a read. We try to put some of our highlights from our episodes and some takeaways that we felt was really helpful for all of us out there. And happy Dyslexia Awareness Week and Month for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.